is generating waste in the first place? It is households, shopkeepers, marketplaces, institutions such as schools, anganwadis, chicken stall, mutton stall. All these people, they are generating waste. And when it comes to answering the question who is responsible for managing waste, we say the Gram Panchayat is responsible because the GP is constitutionally mandated to manage sanitation. That's our response always. So what is the role of the waste generators then? If we say that it is the role of the Panchayat, it is the mandate of the Panchayat, what is the role of the waste generators? The people who are generating waste, the households, the restaurants, the marriage halls, the stalls, marketplaces, vegetable markets, what is their role after all? So is it, does that principle sound all right? Suppose we say I generate waste, you clean up. Does it sound all right when we tell this is a principle that I will generate waste, you come and clean up? It sounds like that. We all shall generate waste. It is for the Gram Panchayat to clean up or arrange cleanup. So that's how it sounds. So there must be roles defined through a Gram Sabha resolution. What is the role of the Gram Panchayat in waste management? What is the role of the households? What is the role of the sanitation worker? What is the role of the BDO or SBMG or PHED? What is the role of the government, central or state? So these require clarifying, right? This is what I call, this is where I think that we need to think about what kind of a management model that we need to think about instead of just straight plain thinking that it is for the panchayats to manage. So when we talk about managing, so model bylaw for waste management, this is one option that we were doing, and some other states like Karnataka was explaining to you that they have a model bylaw. For the model bylaw means it is a model they have given from the state, right? And it is for the panchayats to customize it and modify that and use it to their situation. And it is a bylaw that will be applicable only for that Gram Panchayat. Right, it is a rule. It is a set of rule, maybe about 4 or 5 pages. And like yesterday, Mr. Gaurav from Madhya Pradesh was showing a 3-page agreement, that the panchayat has with self-help groups, right? So that's what I mean. We must have a set of rules, or we must have a set of bylaw. 3-page, 5-page doesn't matter. Do we have something written up? Right. So this is a simple set of rules for Gram Panchayats to customize, modify and follow. This is a set of locally decided rules and norms. Right. What kind of local rules? What time the sanitation worker will come to collect the garbage? And when he comes, what is the responsibility of the household? You need to give only segregated waste. That is your responsibility. Such things, some small rules and norms as recognized and approved by the Gram Sabha. We need to have some written down rules. That's what I mean. So that is part of managing. And it defines the role of various players in the game, like households, shopkeepers, sanitation workers, and VWSC, Gram Panchayat functionaries and all. And payment for services, motivation, IEC, penalty if somebody is violating, such things must be included. So sanitation is the responsibility of the Gram Panchayat. There is nothing to deny that. Yes, 11th schedule of the constitution mandates panchayats, but managing means does the panchayat have the capacity to manage? We need to see that also. We know we have been working with panchayats and we know the capacity of the panchayat. Do they have the capacity to manage? If not, suppose we think that they do not have the capacity to manage, what are the ways in which we can capacitate the panchayat to take up such tasks? Right? So one thing we say is let us go for capacity building. We say let us go for capacity building of Gram Panchayat. This is maybe attempt number 1 or our option number 1 we have. But we need to understand also training is part of capacity building. Training as such is not the whole thing about capacity building. Training is only a part of capacity building. Yes, training will help. Training the panchayat functionaries will help. Educating and preparing the local community will help. Train the community in home composting, that will help. Train the local sanitation workers, waste collectors in segregation and waste treatment methods, that will help. Yes, so this is about training. And capacity building is not about training alone. It is not just about training alone. It is about putting in place a system is part of capacity building. We need to understand this. Those of us attending this program, you know this, but still some of us misunderstand capacity building straight away for training, and we think capacity building means training. It is not just training only. One element of capacity building is training. There are other things like when it comes to waste management, putting in place a system is part of capacity building. Like for example, formation of village water and sanitation committee. Here I call it waste prevention and management committee, for example. a committee is formed. Generally, we form village water and sanitation, VWSC we call it, or waste prevention and management committee. We form this committee. We know some 7-8 members make this committee. Let us call and ask them, what is your role? What are the functions of VWSC? I don't know. I was made a member. I am a member. I don't know what is my function. I was never told. I was told I have been selected to be a member in the committee. I am a member in the committee. I don't know. That's the why do they say that? It is because there is nothing written down. At least one page, if we have written down, what are the functions of VWSC, what they are supposed to do, why this committee, what are the responsibilities of these members of this committee, do they have any power of levying fine or something like that? And we need to have at least one and a half page write up about what is VWSC, what are the functions of VWSC, what is the term of office of VWSC, such things. So recognize it through a Gram Sabha resolution, and these are things that we need to think when it comes to capacitating the panchayat. So recognize it and the VWSC rules through a Gram Sabha resolution, set out the powers and functions of VWSC or Waste Prevention and Management Committee, whatever you call, and the term of office of VWSC members, relationship between the VWSC and the overall elected body, PRI, right, such things. So written down official norms for solid waste management we need to have. So for solid waste management, do we have a set of written down rules that everybody knows in the Gram Panchayat? For example, what are we trying to put across in these 3 days, in this 3-day training about 60 of us here? What are we trying to communicate to each other? We are trying to communicate to each other, and this SBMG phase 2, they are saying waste management must be implemented in Gram Panchayats, number 1. Number 2, in Rurban Mission, we have also that we can take a cluster of panchayats. In the cluster of panchayat, we can go for waste management system, establishing waste management system. And why do we all 60 sitting and talking about this here? Because we must all be on the same page. When we try to do something, it must be, it need not be same, at least it must be similar. Right? At least it must be similar. We must all know this thing in the same understanding. We must have a same understanding about it, right? We must all be in the same page when it comes to implementing. So that's the reason. So, and this is there at the central level, this is there at the state level. If you ask the state, every state may have a policy for waste management, and maybe it goes down up to the district level also. If you ask at the district level, yes, for our district, this is our plan. They may give a district level plan. But when it comes to Gram Panchayat, do they have a proper plan for them? And I don't know if they have. So what if someone does not segregate? If a house, we are trying to implement solid waste management, what if somebody does not segregate waste? And what if somebody throws kitchen waste in the streets? And what if one repeatedly throws kitchen waste on the street? Why should a household pay for waste management services? What if somebody does not pay, and they say, I will not pay, I shall not pay, do what you can? What are we going to do about them? And how to pay, how much to pay, where to pay? Do you give a receipt to them? How do you account for it when you collect from these people? Who is collecting? Is it the sanitation workers collecting, giving a receipt door to door, or the people coming to the panchayat office and paying the user charges? What is the arrangement? Do we have clarity in these things? I mean, in the sense, as a panchayat do I have? As a cluster do I have? So these things must be clarified, written down. That's what I call the official norms or written down rules. So these are things that we need to facilitate for a panchayat, for a cluster to do, right? We cannot expect everything that they understand, they will do. And we have told them in 1 hour meeting, we have told them, and there were about 17 people. Those 17 people understood, I think, so they may do. It does not work that way. We need to have written down things, and we need to see that the panchayat level, at the cluster level, all of them understand it in the same way that you understand. That the same way you and I understand. So what we need to do about? Do we have a written down rules for Gram Panchayat about these rules, and do we implement? Or like, for example, here I have a sample. I'll see. Yes, a model bylaw for Gram Panchayat, and this one. What is the jurisdiction? What is the bylaw? And then it is talking about Gram Panchayat and the survey. When you want to do waste survey, how to do it, and user categories: households, tea stalls, village restaurants, marriage halls, vegetable markets, and which are the areas covered: mutton stalls, grocery shops, schools, offices, all that. And then technical stipulation. right? What are the technicals of wet waste, dry waste, and hazardous waste, and how do we collect? What arrangement is there in this panchayat or in this cluster? And then inspection. How do we do inspection? VWC members are authorized to inspect. Okay, how do they inspect that? And non-compliance. Suppose some households do not comply with it. They say, no, we shall not respect this. What do we do about it? What is the rules about it? Payment for services. How much payment is expected for services in this panchayat or in this cluster? And then how much, okay, payment. And is it uniform, or households pay some amount and the tea stalls pay some amount, village restaurants pay some amount? And do we have something written down like this? Or it cannot be something like those who pay, they pay, and those who pay 30 rupees, let them pay, those who pay 100. It is not like that. Do we have written down things like that? This is required at the panchayat level, cluster level. And penalty, if any, whether we levy a penalty or not, but there must be something written down. Suppose somebody throws kitchen waste despite having a system in place. So first time 500 rupees fine, next time if repeatedly found doing 2000 rupees fine. I mean, whether implementing, not implementing, that depends on socio-political mechanism in the panchayat. That is different, I agree with you. But do we have at least a written down thing to be able to draw this when it comes to an argument, right? When it comes to an argument with somebody, with a household that is not complying. So such things are required. What are the responsibilities of the households, waste generators? What are the responsibilities of the marketplace? What are the responsibilities of the sanitation workers? What are the responsibilities of the VWSC and Gram Panchayat, right? So such things we need to have. So this is one sample that I wanted to show you. We will share it with you, and this we can customize to the requirements of your panchayat. So this is one. And then yes, and then next is, so this is just a little elaboration of that, the same thing that you saw. That is one way of managing, panchayat managing. Other options we can think of: management taking care, Gram Panchayat taking care of the management of solid waste, and contracting out a part of it, the waste collection only, and pay a tipping fee. For example, panchayat thinks we cannot arrange for vehicles. 7 vehicles are required, and they say all the time workers, wages, salary, and then vehicle maintenance, fuel. They say diesel, and when it is only 7 liter, they say 13 liter. Such problems are there some panchayat face. So some panchayats, what they have done is that they just appoint a private service provider. That whatever number of vehicles you use, but door-to-door collection, segregated collection must take place at appointed time. It must take place daily morning, and you get a tipping fee for every trip you are making, or per month. Per month, how much money you need, you tell us, we will pay from the panchayat. In the panchayat, we will pay from 15th Finance Commission fund, we will pay from our own source fund, and we also will charge user charges, and then we will pay that money. But panchayat will not go to door, and it will be some private people who have a tractor who agree to do this, and we pay you tipping fee, and monthly you take this much money, and whatever number of trips you make, it is up to you to make, but every month you take this money. If you agree, come to that. So that way we can also call for people who are willing to take up this, and we can select one of them. That is another way. That is, I mean, once the waste has reached the segregation shed, then the panchayat will take care with their workers. Sanitation workers will go for secondary segregation, finding the scrap dealers or composting. All that they will take care. But this vehicle purchasing, maintenance and fuel, all that we shall not take care. This is, I mean, one of the ways of managing this we have seen also. You can think in those lines. And then the third one is yesterday our Indore man, Mr. Gaurav, was also mentioning about contracting out the entire thing to a local self-help group. We contract out to the entire thing to the local self-help group or federation, and we train them how to do that, and they go around doing it. And they say, we have an agreement with the self-help group. I can just to remind, I can show the contract he was showing us yesterday. Right, Madhya Pradesh, they have this just how many? 2-page contract. That's all. Just a 2-page contract they have with the self-help group, writing down what rules that the self-help group should follow, and what kind of composting they should follow, and such things they have. And then about 13, 14, 16 classes they have, and then they have signed. Right, they have signed the self-help groups on behalf of self-help group. Somebody has signed on behalf of some Gram Panchayats involved. Some 3-4 people have signed. So this is another way of doing it. And instead of panchayat doing it, assigning it to some self-help group, and the self-help group get into an agreement with the panchayat, and the self-help group carry out the work. Self-help groups carry out the work, and every month the self-help group is getting the money and they are sharing among themselves. That's up to them, right? And it is for the panchayat to see that they are able to pay the money by the 15 Finance Commission Fund, as I told you, or through user charges or own source, whatever, right? So this is second way we can think of when it comes to managing. And then the third way is contracting out to a professional NGO. Like, for example, Sahas is an NGO, yesterday somebody was mentioning, and they are taking up also such works. And so there are many professional NGOs in which West Bengal also, in some villages I know they are working, professional NGOs who have been in this for 7-8 years at least now. In the last 7-8 years they are involved only in waste management. They know this well, and how to approach community, how to segregate, all that they know well. So the panchayat has contracted out to that NGO, and that NGO takes care of everything, door-to-door collection, segregated, and then composting, all they take care. And for the panchayat, I mean, it is like something like water ATMs, for example, right? So you contract it out to a professional NGO who can do this, and then they will carry out. Maybe you select among 3, 4, 5 NGOs, you select who is willing to take up this and what is their professional competence. Based on that, you can contract it out to them. That's another option we have. And then the next one we have is contract it out to the private waste management agencies. There are also private waste management agencies. Like yesterday, we had Mr. Rahul from EPR, Social Lab Pune. He is an out-and-out a private waste management agency. He is an out-and-out private waste management agency, and he is also working for the town panchayats and others. And if we can have at the cluster level, if there is sufficient waste, then they will be willing to come and work here also. So we can contract out to the private waste management agency based on an agreement, and all these involve signing an MOU or agreement with such agencies. So private waste management agency here, I think this is the concession agreement in Kerala, Kozhikode. I saw some panchayats together. Here you see here Valavanna Gram Panchayat, Kadalundi Gram Panchayat, Kunnamangalam Gram Panchayat, all these panchayats together, they are into an agreement with a private agency, and this is a concession agreement they have signed, and this is a very detailed concession agreement. And whatever you see here, we will be sharing all these with you, all these samples. These are all, you can use all these as sample. Like I was showing you about self-help group agreement. This is a private person's agreement, and initially I showed you a panchayat level agreement. So we will share all these with all of you here this afternoon, and you can take a look at this, and from this you can draw and prepare your own agreement for your state, your cluster, your district. You can prepare your own, taking ideas from all these. We will share this with you. So here they have a lot of class here. They have this panchayat, they are, I mean, it is going into 100 pages, and maybe because they have written it like a real legal document, like access road means what, accounting year means what, additional cost means what, right? So like a legal document, they have written it very nicely. And then agreement means what, affected party, suppose somebody calls affected party means what, and like that they have given definition like a real agreement that can even stand in a court, and they have this agreement. So such samples we can take, and we can prepare one for our cluster. So these are management models that I thought I should put across. So the point is, Gram Panchayat managing solid waste does not have to mean Gram Panchayat managing it directly, right? I repeat, Gram Panchayat managing solid waste does not have to mean Gram Panchayat managing it directly. Waste management services are provided by Gram Panchayat through other professional bodies. It can be a self-help group, it can be a private agency, it can be an EPR agency, right? It can be a professional NGO specializing in waste management. We need to identify such people through advertisement or whatever, right? Through official advertisement, and then we can select one of them to do that. And all that is required is, and our cluster development management unit we have. So our cluster development management unit, as a representative of the cluster, how they will get into an agreement, what kind of agreement, how they will pay, such things we need to work out through such contracts. So the GP pays the service provider every year, the Gram Panchayat or the CDMU, right? Cluster Development Management Unit on behalf of these panchayats pay service provider every year as per the agreement signed, and this certainly involves payment to service provider for which the GP needs to also mobilize own source revenue. OSR means own source revenue. So suppose the money we have is not enough, the panchayats should also be willing to generate own source revenue through user charges and other sources. So that, because I don't know if 15th Finance Commission funds would be enough to be able to meet all the sanitation workers or salary, or to be able to pay to the private service provider. So in that case, these 4-5 panchayats must also be willing to mobilize own source revenue to be able to meet this, because they are contracting it out and they are relieving of a very big headache of managing the entire thing, and because it is contracted out to an outsourced agency. And then we have, this is an important slide. So in Rurban Mission, we have cluster management units. Rurban clusters have CDMUs, we know, cluster development management units, with representatives from 5-6 GPs. Right, they belong to 5-6 Gram Panchayats together. They have cluster development management units, and this, as of now, the CDMUs are actively involved only when it comes to planning, and then they slowly fade away. That should not happen here. And when it comes to waste management, they should get into this agreement on behalf of all these 4-5 panchayats, and they can act as a representative body of, or like a VWSE in the case of a Gram Panchayat. Like VWSE in the case of a Gram Panchayat, can we have CDMU in that place as a representative institution of all these 5 Gram Panchayats? This is something you need to think about. The CDMU is considered as the institution that represent all the GPs in the cluster. Thus, the CDMUs can come to an agreement how to manage waste and what kind of understanding, MOU against GPs they can sign, and then sign an agreement with a self-help group or NGO or EPR agency like you were listening to yesterday, or private service provider, where we can go for an agreement we can think of, and decide the terms of user fees collection and the payment how do you pay to the service provider. Such things must be discussed in the CDMU, and then we can improve upon the agreement paper and then get into signing an agreement. So the agreement can include how each GP will manage wet waste. For example, suppose there are 5 panchayats, and these 5 panchayats, maybe we can get into an agreement. Wet waste is managed at the household level. It should not come. It will be a headache. Suppose you think like that. These are just fictitious examples I am giving. So wet waste must be managed at the household level. That is one option. Or wet waste must be managed at the panchayat level. That should not come to the cluster level. Wet waste, every panchayat you manage wet waste. Only the plastic waste and other dry waste will be collected from all the panchayats, and then that will be managed at the cluster level. Right? Maybe we can think of all these options. Right? So like in a water supply system, combined water supply system, bringing water up to that point of the village is the responsibility of the government. And then distribution inside the village is the responsibility of panchayat. Like that, the panchayat can take the responsibility of managing the wet waste, and then the cluster level we can manage the wet waste or the plastic waste through our material recovery facility we set up. So what is the responsibility with regard to door-to-door collection and transport to the centralized place? What is the responsibility of the Gram Panchayat when it comes to collection, transport in a centralized place? How the solid waste management unit will be managed by the CDMU or representative VWSEs of the Gram Panchayat, depending on the amount of waste from each GP, how expenses will be met. What is likely to be the expenses and how these expenses will be met? All these must go into this understanding or into this agreement. So how about the dry waste? Are we going to sell the segregated dry waste to the scrap dealers? And do we have the list of scrap dealers for our cluster and the recyclers directly from our scrap dealers, the recyclers, and are we going to sell it directly to them, or we are going to make use of the plastic waste management unit being set up at the block level by the BDO, right? Which one are we going to use? Are we going to sell it directly to the scrap dealers and recyclers, or we will make use of the plastic waste management unit the BDO will set up? And how to meet the operation and maintenance expense of the solid waste management unit jointly owned and operated by CDMC. As of now, the understanding is that this is jointly owned by the CDMU, Cluster Development Management Unit, or you can, if you want to call it a Waste Prevention and Management Committee, and there it is jointly owned. So how do we meet the operation maintenance expenses? Such things we need to have clarity written down in a paper. So costs involved, we know the government bears expenses pertaining to capital costs, investment required through various schemes. You have your ICAP already planned, you may have there, and if you have a plan and the plan says that money will be taken from Swachh Bharat Mission, all that. Now this is time conducive, Swachh Bharat Mission has enough fund, Jal Jeevan Mission has enough fund, Narega has funds, and MNRE can also come to support. So this capital cost is not a problem. The Gram Panchayat has to work out the expenditure involved in regular operation and maintenance. That is the only thing. So that we need to have clarity, and this involves wages to be paid to the sanitation workers, fuel for the vehicle if it is a diesel operated vehicle, or vehicle maintenance, all that. If a panchayat is going to do, if you are going to contract out, you don't have to worry about these things. All that you need to worry about is where is the money going to come from to be able to pay the service provider. So you can also decide what are the materials and facilities required, and out of these clusters, where do we have the land, right? We need to have the land allotted. We need to have the land allotted, and we need to get permission for that, government permission for that, and where, in which of the Gram Panchayat it will come, and then setting up the compost shed. Right? Will every panchayat will have one, or common we will have, like on day one, Karnataka was showing one common shed they had in one place, and containers for the households, who is giving, panchayat is giving, or they are buying tricycles, or is it a tractor, sanitation workers, uniform, such things you may have to decide. And here, I think I'm almost towards the end of this presentation. I have given a blank budget format. This one, before we start this exercise, when we start this exercise, when we are writing down the agreement, we need to do a rough work like this. This is rough work only, in the sense, what are the one-time expenditures involved in setting up solid waste management unit, right? We may have to, this one assumes 300 households, because it was considered it was for a panchayat. So containers have to be given, or dustbins have to be given, big shoppers or tricycles or tractors, compost pit, segregation shed, uniform, gloves, cab, whistles, tools and equipment. All these are one-time expenditure we can. And then there are also recurring expenses like supervisor's salary, sanitation worker's salary, consumables, bleaching powder, repair. These are all recurring expenditure. So these are the items of expenditure that come. Let us work out just approximately how much it comes to for a panchayat, or how much it comes to for the cluster we work in. And similarly, let us also see, just fictitiously, by imagination, possible income sources. What are the possible income sources? How much we can have as service charges, right? Service charges from the household, service charges from the marriage hall, service charge from the restaurants, tea stalls, marketplaces. So service charge, by way of service charge, how much is the likely income? And we are going to sell the compost items. If we are making compost, vermicompost, or whatever we say we are going to sell, and there will be income from that. Sale of recyclable items to the scrap dealers, recyclers, yes, we will have some money. And if there is any fine and penalty for violators, yes, how much it is going to come. And if it is not enough, how much we can take from the 15 Finance Commission fund. So what is likely to be the expenditure and what is likely to be the income? If we can do a rough calculation of this with the panchayat functionaries, CDMU representatives, then we can have an idea, is it possible that we can run it sustainably when it comes to financial aspects. Financially, sustainably, shall we be able to run this unit or not? If the income is less and expenditure is more, and how do we reduce the expenditure, or how do we bring in additional income? So those are things that we need to sit and discuss with the panchayat. This is a rough workout, and for a panchayat level it was made. I think for the panchayats, we collected their income, expenditure, all that. I think I don't go into the details. And just let me come to the last one. The waste versus resources. So we are saying we are not managing with waste. It is actually a resource we mentioned sometime in the course of the program. So is it solid waste or solid resource? We need to think also, because if we are converting waste into resource, for example, we are converting waste into vermicompost, and we are selling vermicompost, vermi-wash, and several other products I showed you yesterday. Recyclables are sold, and we are getting money from that. So it is possible that there are some income that can come from that. That way we can call it as a resource, because what is useless, or what we thought is useless, now it is giving some income to the panchayat. So that way we can say that it is, yes, fine, it is a resource. But the experience of Gram Panchayat, there are not many experiences from cluster level, but the experience of Gram Panchayat, it shows that most successful solid waste management units, there are many successful solid waste management units. So whoever is claiming to be very successful, and they have been able to make only 20 to 35% of the expenditure incurred just out of these sources. Unless they collected user charges, they are not able to meet the remaining 65%. Now you can say, yes, no, sir, we have 15 Finance Commission fund, let it come. But even if it comes, and with this income that we are generating from the vermicompost and all that, we should see if it is enough to be able to meet all the expenditure for operation and maintenance, because the ministry is clear. Yesterday afternoon we had a meeting with the Jal Shakti ministry. The additional secretary was talking to us, and he is very clear that the panchayat should be able to manage from the income from vermicompost and other sources, number one, and number two, through collecting user charges from various waste generators, restaurants, households, all that. And number three, they can use 15 Finance Commission fund. For this, they must be clear. Panchayats must be clear. Cluster must be clear. This is how they can operate and maintain, and let them not expect anything from the ministry or the state when it comes to operation and maintenance. They are very clear about it. So that's why we want to put across also in this training that we need to be clear about this when we get into this. Or when we take up setting up solid waste management units in our clusters. So I would say the more the resource recovery, higher the expenditure. Suppose some places I found they are going for many products using waste. Like I was telling you yesterday, there was a place where they were making eggshell powder. Yeah, and then they were also making washing powder, and then vessel washing powder and all that. So with all these waste material they were making, but the more the resource recovery, higher the expenditure also is involved. We must know that. So this is not to, the last slide is not to discourage. This is to give you a caution, and we need to be alert when it comes to planning. When it comes to planning, we need to be clear so that we are able to sustainably run this when we start. That's the point I am trying to make. Yes, I think I have spoken enough. So I think I'll close here for any questions you want to ask about this. Yeah.